You think attachment proves seriousness. You think intensity signals value. You overinvest to show commitment, then call the anxiety that follows a sign of passion. You feel the need, and you tell yourself it is strength. The result is predictable. You move faster. You talk more. You try harder. You leak your need into every interaction. People feel it. Systems detect it. You start playing from a lower position without noticing. Not because you lack talent, but because your attention is captured by what you fear to lose. This belief sits under most of your choices. If you want it more, you will get it sooner. If you care more, you will be chosen. If you attach stronger, they will not leave. You see attachment as leverage. In reality, it is a tell. It marks you as the one who will accept worse terms. It makes you easy to move, easy to sell to, easy to delay, easy to placate, and easy to disappoint without consequence. People and institutions do not reward what is desperate. They reward what is scarce. Detachment is not apathy. Detachment is not coldness or lack of care. Detachment is the decision to care without collapsing. It is the refusal to let your state be owned by outcomes you do not control. In Stoic terms, it is the clean separation between what is up to you and what is not. Epictetus was blunt about it. Attach your peace to what depends on you. Let everything else come and go. This is not spiritual decoration. It is operational clarity. When your internal state stops hitching itself to external events, your behavior stops broadcasting need. That is where power starts. The mistake is thinking passion and attachment are the same. They are not. Passion targets action. Attachment targets outcome. Passion drives preparation and effort. Attachment drives rumination and bargaining. One increases the quality of your moves. The other decreases your judgment and makes you late to recognize facts. The brain does not hide this. High attachment raises baseline cortisol and increases amygdala reactivity. You process threat faster and narrower. Your prefrontal cortex gives up range. You stop exploring. You push the same move harder. You take worse deals because any closure feels like relief. You know the pattern. You text again because silence feels like failure. You accept a delay because saying no risks the opportunity disappearing. You lower your price because you cannot stand the thought of losing the client. You stay in a job because the idea of being unemployed feels like status death. You think you are being practical. You are negotiating from fear of loss. That state has a name in behavioral economics: loss aversion. The pain of losing weighs heavier than the pleasure of gaining. Under high attachment, that ratio explodes. You do not see the world clearly. You screen for threats to the object of attachment, and you miss everything else. Detachment protects your information processing. It preserves optionality. When you can walk away, you can think cleanly. You can test moves without the gravity of outcome bias pulling your analysis. You can pause, observe, and recalibrate without signaling weakness. People feel this difference. There are two stances in any exchange: the chaser and the chooser. The chaser asks for permission. The chooser decides fit. When you detach, you stop asking the world to validate your desire. You start evaluating whether the world deserves your effort. Machiavelli wrote about fortuna and virtù. Fortuna is chance and chaos. Virtù is character, skill, and the capacity to shape events. The prince who depends on luck falls. The prince who depends on his own force of will and his discipline stays. Detachment feeds virtù. It removes the fragility that comes from worshiping luck. When you no longer cling to the outcome, you can use events as material instead of proof of worth. You do not beg fortune to be kind. You build a posture that can absorb fortune swings. The nervous system obeys simple rules. Attach strongly, and your system spikes and crashes with each signal. Variable reward loops train compulsion. The platform that delays the like or stretches the reward interval owns your attention longer because your dopamine system fires hardest at prediction errors. The same loop runs in romance, in markets, and in status games. Intermittent positive feedback binds you tighter than consistent approval. This is why clingy behavior feels rational in the moment. Your brain mistakes volatility for meaning. Detachment breaks that loop, not by pretending not to care, by pacing your investment to reality, by staying aligned with what is in your control, then letting feedback inform your next move instead of define you. Consider identity. Attachment fuses who you are with what you want. It says, I am my relationship. I am my role. I am this income bracket. I am this audience size. If any of it shifts, the self collapses or lashes out. Detachment refuses that merge. It says, I have a relationship. I play a role. I earn an income. I build an audience. Then, if any of it leaves, the self remains intact enough to choose the next move. Secure people are not indifferent. They are not numb. They are not superior. They have internal ballast. They do not need the outside to stop moving before they can think. History rewards the detached. Diogenes had nothing to offer Alexander the Great, which is why Alexander wanted his approval. Marcus Aurelius wrote at night about death and noise and loss, and ruled in the morning without theatrical emotion. Seneca owned wealth and could live without it. He trained his mind not to be surprised by loss. The power was not in the sermon. It was in the posture. Others controlled less of them than most men could claim. That is influence. Others calibrate to your center when they cannot move it. At this point, the usual objection comes. Without attachment, there is no edge. A detached person is bland, safe, and empty. The science says different. The Yerkes-Dodson law describes a curve where too little arousal leads to apathy and too much leads to panic. Performance peaks in the middle. Detachment pulls you out of the panic end. It creates space for deliberate focus and flow. You feel intensity during action and release it when the action ends. You do not carry it into sleep, into unrelated conversations, or into bargaining positions where it has no use. Attachment also distorts time. When you cling, you shorten your horizon. You demand immediate signals of security. You rush decisions. Long-term value requires the ability to tolerate short-term ambiguity. Detachment buys you that skill. You can hold a standard without needing instant reassurance that it will pay off. You can say no today so that your future self has better choices. That is not romantic. It is compounding. Social psychology is clear on status. People assign higher status to those with visible freedom of choice. In prestige-based hierarchies, respect follows perceived autonomy and expertise. In dominance hierarchies, fear enforces compliance. Both systems grant power to those who can withhold. If you cannot say no, your yes has no weight. If you cannot leave, your presence has no gravity. Detachment gives your signals weight. It transforms your words from requests into terms. In negotiation, the best alternative to a deal sets your leverage. If you need this specific buyer, you give up margin. If you can walk to another buyer, your rate is your rate. This applies in romance, partnership, employment, and reputation trades. Detachment preserves your alternatives. It keeps you from collapsing to one option and calling it destiny. It lets you wait for fit instead of forcing fit. That is not playing games. That is respect for cost. Attachment often wears a moral mask. You tell yourself that staying attached proves loyalty, that you win because you will not leave. In truth, loyalty without discernment is a liability. It binds you to low standards and to people who exploit that story. Detachment does not destroy loyalty. It purifies it. It aligns loyalty with values and mutual respect, not with fear of being alone. A detached person can commit hard. They can build deep. They can do this because they can also end what is not right. Their commitment has a clear off switch. That makes their on switch trustworthy. The market knows your need better than you do. Algorithms test your thresholds. Sales processes probe your urgency. Dating apps sort you by engagement and response time. Employers map your alternatives by how you negotiate. People hear it in your voice. They see it in your timing. They feel it in how quickly you fold. Need signals travel fast. Detachment is not a lie you tell to hide need. Detachment is the end of the need. You stop needing what you cannot control. You keep your standard regardless. Then you accept what meets it and decline what does not. This is not soft. It is not gentle. It requires you to watch parts of your life fall away and not chase. It asks you to take responsibility for your attention, not just your tasks. The mind is a prediction engine. It constantly simulates threats and rewards. Attachment locks the simulation on one object. Detachment expands the map. Attention can now evaluate reality instead of reinforcing a fixation. Neurotransmitters follow attention. Dopamine stops spiraling around a single loop and instead rewards learning. Serotonin rises with agency and competence. Your physiology starts to stabilize because your narrative is no longer at war with events. There is a reason most people do not do this. Economies profit from your attachment. Industries design for it. Platforms monetize your inability to leave. Even education systems reward compliance over autonomy, then market that compliance as virtue. Your friends will encourage attachment because your attachment makes their world predictable. When you detach, you expose how often they mistake anxiety for love and compliance for teamwork. You will be told that you are cold. You will be told you are selfish. It helps to remember the line from Aurelius. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. You are not breaking anything by refusing to be owned. Detachment is not the same as avoidant behavior. Avoidance hides from stakes. Detachment tolerates stakes without identity collapse. Avoidant people run from intimacy. Detached people can be intimate because they can also leave dishonesty and confusion. Avoiding people are controlled by fear. Detached people control their responses to fear. This difference matters if you care about results. Detachment increases the depth of your relationships because you stop bargaining with hidden fear. You do not need to perform to hold someone. You do not need to run if they have a need you cannot meet. You can look at it. You can say what is true. You can end it cleanly if it is wrong. In work, attachment looks like hero culture. You sacrifice sleep. You check email before you think. You seek the next approval hit. You burn out and call it high standards. Detachment separates standards from self-torture. You set outputs. You train repeatable processes. You protect recovery without asking permission. You are now dangerous in the right way. You can produce without falling into cycles of guilt and overwork. People cannot cheaply buy your time with urgency. They have to bring real value. In money, attachment makes you chase heat and hate cash. You overtrade for adrenaline. You hold losers because you need to be right. You take deals to feel busy. Detachment favors rule sets over feelings. It is comfortable with boredom and cash on hand when nothing meets criteria. You do not fall for most traps because you are not seeking a fix. You are seeking alignment. That is why long-term players hold power. They are willing to look boring and to miss the party. In status, attachment builds a cage. You adopt positions you cannot update without losing face. You talk to be seen talking. You accept invitations to avoid being forgotten. Detachment lets you be silent. It lets you change your mind. It lets you leave rooms where your values are currency for other people's entertainment. Your reputation becomes sharper and more stable because it no longer rests on constant public reassurance. You become known for what you will not do. That is a brand you can live with. There is a simple test for attachment. Remove the object in your mind. Notice your first reaction. If the absence feels like extinction, you are attached. If it feels like grief and clarity, you are not. Grief is clean. It ends. Clarity chooses. Attachment does neither. It lingers. It bargains. It invents narratives to justify staying. You can respect your pain without worshiping the cause of it. That is the adult position. It does not require coldness. It requires boundaries. If you want a psychological frame, use self-determination theory. Humans thrive with autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Attachment poisons autonomy and competence. It replaces them with dependency and rumination. Detachment restores autonomy by ending the demand that the world behave. It restores competence by moving your attention back to what you can improve. Relatedness improves because you meet others as a whole person, not as a needy half. If you want a philosophical frame, consider Nietzsche's idea of self-overcoming. The point is not comfort. The point is strength. Not strength as dominance, but as internal command. The will that says yes to life is not clinging. It is choosing. Detachment is a precondition for that yes. Without it, your yes is always a disguised plea. If you want a clinical frame, consider cognitive diffusion from acceptance and commitment therapy. You are not your thoughts. You are the context in which thoughts appear. Detachment is that context held steady. The world will not announce that you are ready for this. There will be no certificate. The shift is private. You stop making fear a reason. You stop negotiating against yourself. You stop explaining your standards. You reply slower. You listen for tone, not just words. You feel less compelled to convince. You allow silence. You allow others to reveal themselves. You accept the cost of being misunderstood. Power is not given. It is noticed when you no longer broadcast need. Detachment will make you lose some things. False bargains, lopsided agreements, roles that demanded self-betrayal. It will also make you immune to certain traps, flattery, manufactured urgency, manufactured shame. Once you see it, it is difficult to unsee. The supply chains of modern life depend on people who cannot say no. If you choose to detach, expect friction. Expect that the room will test whether you mean it. That is normal. Systems protect themselves. What remains after the tests is clean. You will notice that the people and opportunities that stay can handle your boundaries. They feel relief in your clarity. They stop escalating and start stating terms. Negotiation becomes simpler. Conversations become shorter. Work becomes quieter. You will get accused of being lucky. You will not need to answer. There is responsibility here. Detachment used as a weapon becomes cruelty. Detachment used as a shield becomes isolation. Detachment used as a practice creates authority. It is the discipline of acting with full effort while giving up the need to be owned by what happens next. It is sober. It is repeatable. It can survive stress. It does not rely on tricks. It relies on identity. Who are you when the outcome is uncertain? Who are you when they say no? Who are you when no one is watching? You are told to chase. You are told that hunger is attractive. You are told that if you stop wanting it so badly, it will never come. The truth is simpler and colder. When you need it to breathe, you signal that you will trade your air for it. People take that trade. Machines are built to take that trade. Detachment cuts the market rate of your soul back to zero. You do not trade that anymore. You trade skill for value. You trade time for learning. You trade presence for reciprocity. Everything else is noise. If you are still looking for a permission slip, listen to this. You will disappoint people when you detach. You will disappoint narratives that kept you small. You will disappoint a version of yourself that thought sacrifice equals love. That disappointment is not a sign that you are wrong. It is a sign that you are no longer available for the old exchange. You want power, so stop trying to own what owns you. Take your attention back. Tie your peace to what you can actually move. Hold your standard. Let the world respond. If it fits, accept it. If it does not, release it. No anger, no apology. Just facts. This is not for everyone. Most people would rather feel included than free. They would rather be wanted than valuable. They say yes fast and often. Then they wonder why they feel used. If you heard yourself in any of this and felt that small spike of defensiveness, that is the point. You are trained to attach and to confuse it with love, work ethic, and virtue. You can stop. Few will. If you want to be in the minority that others cannot move at will, choose detachment, not as oppose. As a private rule, decide what is yours to control. Put your effort there. Let everything else be optional. You will feel the shift. The room will feel it too. And once you carry it, you will not trade it for approval again.